Hi, my name is Miranda, and welcome to the second video in my Coffee Around the World series, where I dig into the history, culture, and my favorite coffee shops in cities around the world. I just spent the past 2 months in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas, which is one of the best coffee producing regions in the world. And I had the chance to learn from farmers, coffee shop owners, and the people who know best about what it means to grow high quality, organic, fair trade coffee and why it matters to the people who drink it. So to start with a little bit of background on who I am and why I'm spending so much time making videos on coffee. I am an independent journalist, photographer, videographer, and I cover stories that are mostly related to food, travel, agriculture, and sustainability. As someone who's both a remote worker and a frequent traveler, I have seen my fair share of coffee shops. So I wanted to create this series to be able to share some of those with you all from cities around the world. And I wanted to create videos that tie into the bigger conversation of where our coffee comes from, how it impacts us and our environment, and why we should care. Later on in the video, you'll see an interview with the owner of an organic, fair trade, cooperative-run coffee shop in the city of San Cristobal de las Casas. You'll also see some of my favorite coffee shops in that city. If you have any questions or things that you're interested in learning about in future videos, let me know in the comments. And until then, I hope you enjoy. I wanted to start with a short history of coffee in Mexico. Mexico is currently the 8th largest coffee producing country in the world, and the United States' largest source of coffee imports. But Mexican people have not been huge producers or consumers of coffee for nearly as long as many other major coffee producing regions, as Mexicans have traditionally drank cacao and pozole as their primary caffeinated beverages. In the late 1700s, coffee was introduced to Mexico by Europeans, who began purchasing plantations in Mexico, especially in the southern region. In the late 1800s, the Mexican government claimed the land of indigenous peoples and sold it to foreigners, corporations, and to Mexican people. Much of this land was bought by European settlers who then hired indigenous workers to work the farms, often with negligible pay and poor working conditions. In the early 1900s, the Mexican Revolution set in motion a long process of land redistribution, but many land recipients received only a fraction of the land necessary to compete with larger industrial farms and lacked the resources and machinery that bigger farms had to use. And so small farmers began to cultivate their land organically in the way they always had, without the use of chemicals and big machinery that was being made accessible to large-scale producers. In 1962, the International Coffee Agreement was created, which helped keep coffee prices high and quality to a decent standard in the global market. A couple decades later, coffee became Mexico's most valuable export crop, making up 35% of total agricultural output by the mid-80s. But in '89, the ICA collapsed and opened the floodgates to low-cost and poor-quality coffee. The country began transitioning from traditional organic farming to conventional practices in which farmers use more and more synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and other chemicals. At a time when global corporations were seeking large amounts of affordable coffee, it was the perfect storm for Mexico to become a prominent producer of coffee around the world. The rise of inorganic farming came with environmental and health sacrifices for both the farmers and the consumers, but these changes also led to the creation of coffee cooperatives, which supported indigenous, small-scale producers and the organic production that had been practiced for centuries. This is around the time that the international attention to organic produce was booming and brought economic opportunity to the newly formed cooperatives. Later in this video, you'll hear an interview with someone who works as a part of a coffee cooperative in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas. Chiapas has a tropical climate and an altitude of 1,000 meters, making for some of the ideal conditions for growing coffee. The methods used by organic farmers in Chiapas are largely based on agro-ecosystems, which are focused on mutually beneficial relationships between native plants and crops. There's a low level of human involvement in these systems, and protection from pests and diseases is created through biodiversity rather than chemicals. Today, there are over 500,000 coffee producers in the country, with more than 95% of them being small growers with less than 3 acres of land. Across the coffee industry, as so many other industries, Indigenous and smallholder producers are the most vulnerable of them all. The Zapatista uprising in 1994 helped gain some land rights and better prices for coffee, though the people of Chiapas continue to fight for land rights and fair treatment today. Purchasing coffee directly from independent cooperatives rather than from third-party organizations allows farmers to operate their businesses with more control and be more fairly paid for their work. Paying closer attention to where our coffee comes from and purchasing from brands that reflect our values can help make a difference in the lives of the people and land that make good quality coffee possible.
Nosotros somos una cooperativa que se dedica a la siembra y cosecha de café completamente orgánico. Aquí conlleva orgánico que no utilizamos fertilizantes, no utilizamos pesticidas, nada de químicos. Nosotros trabajamos todo el año a través de muchísimas personas que cada uno tenemos diferentes actividades, como algunos el riego, algunos darle movimiento a la tierra, otros inspeccionar las plantas de café para así llegar a un rendimiento óptimo en la cosecha. El café orgánico es mucho mejor debido a que la cafeína, cuando se utilizan químicos, fertilizantes, pesticidas, hace que la cafeína sea un poco más agresiva tanto para el estómago como para nuestros sentidos. La ansiedad te da muy fuerte y aparte te hace dependiente a la cafeína más que a disfrutar de un buen café. El orgánico, por naturaleza, el café de altura, los niveles de cafeína son bajos. El proceso natural conlleva muchos años de cuidado. Entonces en la cooperativa lo que hacemos es rehabilitar más terrenos para que sean óptimos para sembrar más café. La cooperativa conlleva a que es un trabajo en equipo. Todo el trabajo, hay diferentes actividades. Entonces también cuando se generan ganancias, las ganancias son repartidas por partes iguales. Entonces eso es lo bonito de trabajar en una cooperativa, que nos tenemos que organizar, tenemos que tener acuerdos entre todos para el beneficio no de uno, ni de dos, ni de tres personas, es el beneficio de toda la cooperativa, del municipio, de todos los que están involucrados en el café dentro de la cooperativa. Es diferente a una finca que de los dueños o las personas son una, dos, tres, cuatro personas o cuatro familias. Aquí es completamente diferente, somos muchos. Entonces hay que organizarse bien cada año para tener una mejor organización, que eso es lo que se viene logrando a través de los años. Siempre los cafés en las marcas o en las bolsas tienen que tener un sello que es de Fairtrade. De hecho, Café K es Fairtrade, para que todas las ganancias sea un comercio justo. O sea, que lo que se gana se reparte en partes iguales. No hay un disparo de precios de que uno compra un precio, otro precio. Aquí el precio que se vende el café es conforme a la bolsa de valores. No le podemos subir ni bajar, es un precio estándar. Pero en sí, el café, los precios tú los puedes checar en internet en la bolsa de valores. Y en la bolsa de valores ahí te dice los precios de café y ahí tú pones el estándar del precio. Si en bolsa de valores tiene un precio y tú lo das a otro, entonces como que hay algo que no es fair trade. Por eso muchos cafés pues juegan con los precios de fair trade. Realmente tienes que verificar y checar que tenga sello, cuánto cuesta en la bolsa de valores y cuánto cuesta el producto final, y ahí tendrás un estándar de si es fair trade o no es fair trade. Que Café K tiene, no hay intermediarios, no hay coyotaje, es completamente directo porque ahí trabajamos. Entonces por eso los precios de Café K siempre van a ser muy bajos para el mercado, y no muy bajos, sino un precio justo y correcto a lo que realmente tiene que costar un kilo, medio kilo, un cuarto de café. Todos los cafés en San Cristóbal son muy buenos, buenos, diferentes sabores, diferentes calidades, diferentes tierras, Entonces eso hace la diversidad que sea muy divertida, de mucha alegría y muy vasta. San Cristóbal es de café. Puede ser que en algún lugar el café sepa cítrico, en otro un poco más ácido, en otro un poco más dulce, en otro con más cuerpo. Al final todos los cafés son muy buenos. Tenemos la fortuna de tener muchas opciones para probar en San Cristóbal, que eso es lo más bonito. Y una opinión, pues si algún café que tiene químicos o fertilizantes, pues eso como que pues, para mí en lo personal, como Alejandro puedo hablar, eso a mí no me gusta, no sirve. Pero en sí todos los cafés son orgánicos, son muy buenos y ayudan al campo. Al final, entre más rápido se pueda vender, pues hay una retribución y se puede trabajar mejor en rehabilitar nuevas tierras.